we deal with application security. This is the objectives of this class. So by end of the session, what are we going to take away, and what are the things we'll be learning from the session? We generally talk about what is in application security and why the application security is essential. Also on the web application security testing approach, web application security methods securing it. And also we talk about OWASP. OWASP, it's Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP has a long history. It started by 2001 and it's almost 18, 19 years old, and it has major contribution to the web security, and it offers multiple projects. Even the OWASP ZAP web vulnerability testing tool, which is freely available, and it was developed by OWASP and supported to us. By end of this module, we'll be also talking about the software development lifecycle security. So the security essential SDLC model will be using OWASP SAM. The OWASP SAM is a software assurance maturity model. And by 2017-18, we got SAM, OWASP SAM 1.5. Right now we have OWASP SAM 2.0. So what is basically application security? Application security is nothing. There is no starting point, but the application security should be available on all the phases of the development or all the phases of application. So not only from the designing level, will be also in the development phase. The application security will be also in the deployment phase, after deployment in the upgrade phase, and also in the maintenance phase. So any cycle of an application, the security will be available. I mean, we need to be more careful and we need to be concerned on the application cycle. So the application security is not only finding bugs and fixing it, it also the preventing vulnerabilities on any life cycle of the application. So this module is especially concentrating on the application level security. In this session, we'll be dealing more with the web application, not on the Windows-based application, Mac-based or Linux-based application. Everything we deal more, I mean 90%, we learn the vulnerabilities about web application. Because today we know that not only the web browsers, even the smartphones become a medium. So it obviously needs to communicate with the web server, and the response should be received and processed. And that can be done by a browser or an user agent. Similarly, even any Android app are mostly developed in a native Android language, but still HTML5 or HTML based applications are supported by Androids. So these are a simple web application which are installed on the Android phones, and these applications will connect to the remote server, same like the browser and a web server, client server relationship. So the browser agent, the user agent is same as the Android application. So handling, taking care of, discussing more on the web application is much more required at this moment, as most people handle sensitive data on the go, on the fly. They always use their mobile phones, smartphones, the laptops, iPads, etc. So the web application needs to be secured, and we need to be concentrating and well aware about the vulnerabilities commonly available on a web application, and what are the ways and what are the steps we prevent it. So it's we have seen the importance of application security. Let's move on to the perspective on the approach towards the web application security. So let us have a look on this picture. This picture, what this gentleman has on his hand, it's a iPad or it's like a micro surface computer, whatever it may be. It's a portable handheld device which lets him connect throughout the globe. So what he does, he used to read books, he used to watch movies, he used to make some transaction, currency transaction. He sends out email, he checks the geolocation, he books a cab, he orders a coffee, he makes some cloud transaction, cloud upload, cloud download. Also, he does the health oriented tasks. Also, the chat or communication method, he's connected over the network, go green or ecosystem. I mean, he might be using recyclable components in his PDA, and also he used for a general travel purpose. So whatever, he almost deals with almost all the aspect of his everyday activity. So this was taken care by a small piece of device which was handheld. So on the go, he does all the activities, he takes care of everything, and his work is seamless. So he don't need to stop somewhere and go and wait for someone else to complete his task. Everything is done automated and it's software based. So now we can see what the gentleman right here does to the transactions happening every day. So in this side, we see what are the factors, what makes the web traffic or digital transactions more increasing day by day. So these are the reasons why the increase in digital transaction or digital web applications. As you know that the customers ease of access, everyone can connect and anyone can connect from their smartphones or their iPads, etc. So it makes the transaction easy for a customer. So the increase in customer base of any service is day by day. Today, in the modern world, what is a business email address? A business email address is simply a Office 365 account. Most of the companies are migrating to Office 365. Even my email address is an Office 365 account. So when Office email account is compromised and it was hacked, what are the services a hacker can use? Any service and every service which are connected to the email address will be hacked. Corporate email address is your login for, entry point for your enterprise. You may work in HCL, you may work in Wipro, you may work for Symantec, you may work for McAfee, you may work for Norton, you may work for Deloitte, Entity Data. Any company and every company nowadays changing the login pattern. Previously the username and password transaction is no longer available. They are integrating the Office 365 and coming up with the single sign-on option. So once you sign into your account, the account will be linked to all the other services which are required for your employment, which are employed for your tasks, which are required for your job. So you do not need to sign into every individual application separately, one by one. So once you log in with your email address and your password, your email address is obviously your login ID, the password, you are authenticated, you got in, and all the services will be available. So this is an easy way for any hacker to manipulate things, to cheat or to fake or to tweak it. To hack into any email address, it's easier. So what can we do for it just to make sure that the business emails are not getting compromised? By getting the multi-factor authentication. What is a multi-factor authentication? Everyone will know that username and password is the authentication method. Even if it's an email address or a username or anything, whatever it may be, a username and a password is required for authentication. As a security professional, we need to be so much understanding on the fundamentals of authentication. Let me type. So as a security professional, we need to understand the C important concepts, CIA, which are called as confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Likewise, we also need to remember the phrase AAA. First one, authentication. Second is the authorization. The third one is accountability. So now we talk about the authentication part. Authentication part a very important part. There are sessions pre-authentication and authentication and post-authentication. There are three phases which we handle on authentication alone. But in general, we simply to understand authentication means when we enter a username and password, the username and password will be matched in the database or any of the data storage location to ensure that this username matches to the password and it is a valid one. And once the user is valid, he'll be letting into the network. This is just a authentication part. Authentication is ensuring that he is the right person. So just to ensure he'll be let into the environment or he'll be given the access. So for business email compromise, a lot of the companies on most of the companies we enforcing to come up with the multi-factor authentication. What is a multi-factor authentication? Multi-factor authentication is simply what when you enter your username and password, you will be receiving an OTP, for example. OTP in SMS message, you just need to key in, or you'll be installing some time-based authentication mechanism like Symantec VIP or Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. So in the Microsoft Authenticator, these are called time-based OTP. OTP one-time password, TOTP, time-based one-time password. The time-based OTP It's simply a Google Authenticator or any application which is installed on your mobile phone. One time password will be generating frequently, and it would be valid only for a particular amount of time, maybe for 30 seconds to 1 minute or for 2 minutes, the passwords will be. So when you key in, it will move on. It's a simple example. The multi-factor authentication is not only limited to one-time password. There are multiple concepts we talk about, we need to know about. So what you know, what you have, what you are, what you do, where you are. So these are examples. Authentication is, even if it's a Windows account, it will just verify whether the particular user is available. The web application, the Windows computers, Windows domain controller will have a list of usernames. Authentication first part will be matching the username and comparing with the list. It will just check whether the username is available on the list or not, or easy from the valid list. If username is not available, we should throw out a message the username is not available. So only the second phase, if the username is matching, it will match the password towards the list, towards the username. Once the username is found and the password is found, it matches and gives a OK signal. So the user is authenticated. Authenticated is just getting into the network or getting into the application simply. Authorization. What is authorization? Assigning the roles. So every company, we receive a laptop to work from home. So obviously we will not be a administrator of the laptops. We are a standard user. What a standard user is? Okay, let me come with administrator. Administrator is the person who got the rights and access to do whatever he can on the particular computer. For example, he is an administrator. But the same privilege, the same rights, and the same access cannot be provided to everyone, because we will not be aware about what is the knowledge of the person who using the laptop, or what would be his intention, and we would not be understanding what is his behavior or motivation towards the work. So the administrator access cannot be provided to everyone. So the access and the rights will be limited and will be provided only as required. If a person needs access to email accounts, I mean email just for sending and receiving, we'll be providing only access to the emails. So wherein he will not be provided access to the OneNote, the OneDrive, or Visio, etc. Because once the person is not having the task or responsibility to do carry on access with other applications, we will not be give him access. So that we can also reduce the license count, we can buy only the license for Outlook and provide it to him so he can work on it. If the person needs to access only the Internet Explorer, we'll give access to Internet Explorer. So same wise, there is a concept we need to understand: separation of duties. This is a very important term, separation of duties. So in security, the rights and responsibilities of the person will be limited and will be only within the scope of his job. If a person does not need print access, it will not be provided to him. If a person does not require a network access for a network shared path, that should not be given to him, because obviously he don't have the files or he don't need the network shared location which is specific for a finance department. For example, if he is from facilities department, he does not need information of the finance team. So person works for a facility team, we will be providing only the limited access to the computer environment. We'll be providing access to the applications only to which he works for the facility. I mean, maybe inventory or stock details, and he will be given access only to the folders and files which are related to facilities. So we will not giving him access to administrative tools or administrative folders or finance folders or HR folders, etc. So whatever responsibilities or whatever minimum rights required for a particular person will be given, and duties will be separated. So likewise, there is separation of duties. The security works on a very fundamental basic, the concept of least privilege. This is the concept of least privilege, providing only the very minimal access to carry out a task. If I'm a L1 resource, I need a very minimal task to carry out. If I'm one level ahead, two level ahead, if I need any additional privilege, like simply just to have a printer access or file share access, I need to raise a request and it would be approved from the security team. The security manager of the particular domain will be monitoring or reviewing process. So once they are okay with that, they'll give me an approve. And also the privilege and the rights are not permanent. That should be time based and periodically reviewed. Simple example, if I was given access to use pen drives or remote storage devices on my laptop, I can raise a request and give an exception for some time, but it is not a permanent fix. It is not a permanently allowed one, because anytime an employee can change his behavior and his motive or attitude towards the work will change. So the rights towards writing or reading from the USB drive will be revoked after a particular time. So similarly, the least privilege, I'll be given back to the least privilege concept, and I'll be using the very fundamental or minimum rights which is required for my duty to accomplish. So coming back to the multi-factor authentication is what you know, it's your username and password. What is in your head? So no one else knows. So what you have is your mobile phone for OTP or TOTP, mobile phone or RSA token. So what you have is a mobile phone RSA token, comma your smart card. What else we can have? ID card. Okay, smart card, ID card, etc. are same. This is what you have with you, what you carry with you. It might be a smart pen or a wristband which is connected remotely, etc. These are what you have. In authentication, including authentication is nothing but what you know, username and password. This is the fundamental authentication method. Along with that, we'll be adding one more level of security. That is one more level. What you have using a phone or OTP, what you are. What you are typically is your fingerprint, your iris, your palm scan, face scan, face recognition, etc. What you are, typically what you are, even your blood group, even your fingerprint, iris scan, palm scan, facial scan, everything is comes under what you are category. And what you do is your signature, your heartbeat, etc. And where you are is approximately the location of your presence. For example, when you are connected, your smartphone becomes a key. When you are in a particular geolocation, your smartphone becomes a key to your house. You can just show your smartphone, your door opens. Because this feature is already available, geofencing. And also, one more thing, we can also trace the IP address to retrieve the location. IP address to physical location. So when you log into your web page, simply what is my IP? These are called geofencing. So right now I'm into Mountain View, California, Google LLC. This is my place where I connected from. This is my official network. So where it says Mountain View, California, and we can restrict the people from entering the location. We can configure the feature, configure the rule set to enable just let the user into the network only if they are from Mountain View, California. They are from rest of America or from rest of the world, do not let them in. And also we can specify the location, just let users from India, block all other users. This is also called geofencing. Geofencing is geographically we'll be fencing the environment, we'll be blocking it. So let's move on to the slide. Now what happens? In the slide, same the hacker. This is the web application, what the user comes in, the competitive advantage and digitalization industry goes. These are the various factor pulls the customer, draws the customer to a single web application. So multiple factor pushes the customers to use a service. But it is very easy for a hacker who sits somewhere, who hides out somewhere, and his job is just to hack into the web application and to make advantage of the incoming traffic. He make use of all the visitors who visiting a page. There are multiple tools to calculate user traffic. So when we go with Alexa, it's a web traffic monitoring site. We can see how many visitors. So these are the top 500 sites. So first it stands with Google, by YouTube, Facebook, Baidu, Wikipedia, QQ, Yahoo. These are the top trending sites with top user traffic. So how many users are visiting, how many users are continuously visiting the page or reading the page. Based on it, every website will have a scoring system. So for example, when we take xyz.com, it's much familiar with it. xyz.com has a traffic of around 100 users a day. We go with a simple example. When user compromises the system, he can make advantage of all the 100 users. It's unique. When it comes to a month, it comes around 3000 users. 3000 users equal to 3000 unique identification, 3000 unique information of the customer, 3000 unique credit cards, 3000 unique credit card payments or online transaction, whatever. So when a site is compromised, obviously, I mean, the hacker can make use of the identity of the customer to get anything. I personally got an experience last month because I received an SMS from IIFL, which seems to be a loan company. I received an SMS stating your application is processed and I am successful and your loan will be processed shortly. I just thought it was a spam, but when reading into the message, it seems to be authentic, and I tried finding IIFL on the Google. I mean, mostly I will not recommend Google. I personally prefer to go with DuckGo. So checked with IIFL team on it, and I logged a complaint stating that actually I have not made any application for a loan, but I still received a reception. Initially they said it's just a customer care. You have to try with a different number. When I tried providing the reaching the different number, it just rounding. I mean, it backs and forth with the IVR message. I'm not able to talk to any of the representative to lodge a complaint. So later I called back to the original customer care number, and after some struggle of explaining him, and after raising my voice and being somewhat irritative, I mean somewhat irate to the customer representative, he transferred the call to his manager. Later I explained the situation that I have not applied for a loan, but it was logged on my name. So later he confirmed everything and he canceled the application. Even for anyone, because I would be more secure, I would be more conscious of data. So even when you search for me on a Facebook or LinkedIn, it would not be easy for you to identify me or search me, because I tried to minimize the information about myself, exposing my information. You can obviously search for Karthik Ravishankar. You'll be getting my name. You'll be getting visibility to the information to I am, but it will not be so extent. You can just get a basic information. I don't have the habit of posting personal stuff over internet or everything. I always try to clean my information which are out of reach of my hands. In this scenario, someone else got my identity information and lodged a personal loan or some loan from a different company. This was shocking. So what happens to a regular person? When we post a message on a social network or email or LinkedIn, obviously people have a tendency. I mean, I'll create a post, get you jobs in United States of America, Dubai, Singapore. Just send me your resume with complete information, your contact information, your education certificate. We will not think for a minute, take a look to investigate who was the person is, was the post relevant, was it genuine. We'll be just getting the documents, I mean getting the resume updated with all the information. We'll be including the personal address, telephone numbers, PAN card details. If it's a abroad job, we'll be mentioning the, I mean, passport number, whatever. We'll fill everything and send it across to someone else. And also, if they require, we'll be having a sending them a photocopy of your mark sheets, ID proof, address proof, everything. So we are being a victim of cybercrime day by day without knowing. So these are the information which are goes back to the hackers, and that can be used and manipulated in so many ways that needs to be taken care. Okay, security is everyone's responsibility. It's not only the security the company's responsibility, not only the government's responsibility. It's our responsibility to take care, make sure that we secure the data. So what are the key takeaways from this session? So the migration of digitalization, what is it? It gives a business high competitiveness towards the competitors, and also it provides less cost effective and easy to manage, and the customer can be reaching the business from anywhere. So also the risk becomes increased as the internet connected things, I mean internet of things, were increasing day by day. So there were a couple of scenarios where it happened on a reputed casino. It's a well-known casino which was hacked just by a water tank, I mean fish tank, which was connected to internet. So every network is secure. When a casino is dealing with large amount of cash, large amount of visitors, you know how the security would be. The digital surveillance and the physical surveillance, everything will be that much secure, and even the people secure physical security will always have some guns and staff to have the secure. But that was the security of the casino was compromised just by a vulnerability on a fish tank which was connected to the internet. So likewise, we connect smart LEDs, smart bulbs. So whatever comes in, we connect to the mobile phone, we connect to the network, we connect to the TV. So it goes on. So securing Internet of Things is a complex and more challenging things for us now. So almost all the industries, not only healthcare, not only the entertainment, not only the military and defense is already digitalized, but they are in an intranet. They didn't come into the internet publicly, but they have already digitalized and they have much more higher technology what we use in civilian network. So almost all the companies have become connected. So you might also seen some example of what exactly real internet looks like. Okay, for example, we see this because this is the image which floats around the internet. The peak of the ice, what you see above the layer, above the water level, that is the known internet, known network. Any computer or any information which is available to the public, which are search engines are simply they use robots or they use spiders. Those bots will crawl into the web pages, websites. When they crawl into the website, what happens? They'll collect the information and they will be indexing. There will be a ledger index for everyone familiar about index. When someone types in search for noodles, it will be searching in the nearest restaurant which offers noodles and it throws the output. So likewise, the search engine in the background keeps on crawling to all the web pages, all the websites which are visibly available. And that too, we use a meta tag and robot.txt. Robot.txt, it's a file in which we'll be having the information about website. We give the sitemap information out to the search engine so that whenever a person searches, it will throws the information which was indexed by the search engine. So the top part, which is a web page search engine can crawl. This is only the web pages which are search engine crawled and thrown information to the public. So what is invisible? The databases, password protected sites, federal sites, countries, intranet, message boards, forums, classified information, etc. There are lots and lots which are available inside the network. Now the IP address which I'm connected publicly 35200 etc. This is a public IP address. I'm connected to a server which is remotely hosted and this is an intranet. This is also called as a dark network. I have a network of computers. I have 4 to 5 computers connected to this computer, and it's inside an intra network. It's in a LAN, but it is not visible to the search engine, and it is not able to accessible by the general public. This can be accessible only by the private individual, and it belongs to me. So it is an intranet, and it is also called as a dark net. Okay, likewise, if I want to share some information to particular people, I can provide them information about the site and I can upload some documents and I can share some files only to the person which are intended to. So same likewise, the information, your private information are freely available under the invisible site, invisible network. So always it's our duty to ensure that the data is secured and we take utmost care of using the data because the data which are getting leaked which are getting exposed to public are during the data on transit and while the data at rest. Okay, when the data at use, the data will be always in the memory, system memory, and once it's done, once the data is off to the work, the memory will obviously release the data and it will be no longer available. But what happens when the data transit, it transfers from one computer to other computer, obviously there is a possibility of getting it leaked. And also when the data at rest, the data might be copied to a different location, the data might be wrongly moved, the data are leaking. It is very much important to destroy the data after it's no longer necessary. Always having a best practice or best procedures and formulas to maintain the data. So right now we have the GDPR is 100% compliance metric and it becomes an act. So any company or any enterprise which is not complying to the GDPR, they need to face a huge fine and huge lawsuit against them. So what are the approaches we have towards the application security? So towards the left, it's a client or a browser or a user agent, whatever we can call it as. And in between the business logic and the client, we integrate a API. APIs, what are APIs? We have REST and SOAP. These are the two common APIs available. So REST API is more popular recent days because it has good functionality and it's easier to implement and access. So the REST API or SOAP API can be integrated here to access the application logic. Application logic is further segmented into presentation logic, data logic, and business logic. The presentation logic is how the web browser performs or how the web server needs to present a process information. So before getting into it, I'd like to take you to the basic fundamentals of web application and HTTP. So HTTP, what is called HTTP? It's a hypertext transfer protocol, which will also be a HTTPS. The S stands for secure. The S will be using SSL or TLS. SSL is no longer available, it's already taken off. So TSL 1.0, 1.1 is also depreciated. Now we have TSL 1.2, and we don't have guarantee that TSL 1.2 will survive for long. We already have TLS 1.3 on works. So anytime TLS 1.2 gets compromised, we'll be immediately shifting to the TLS 1.3. Transport layer security 1.3. So we've yesterday seen we captured some data, network data from the demo session, and we found how the encrypted data package would be and how hard it is for a particular person to read the data. And also we captured HTTP traffic. Let me see whether it's available. So this is application protocol type. Here I see it's a RDP. We'll filter it out with HTTPS. Okay, HTTP we can go, right? It gives only the HTTP bracket. Okay, it's not giving us the HTTP bracket, so we can capture it once again. So what you can see on the packets here, these are the protocol used by youtube.com HTTPS. So we captured fake multiple times. So this is how the packets would be, and this is how the hexadecimal equivalent value. We will not be able to understand what exactly the packets are, what exactly the packets sent to. Okay, BBC. That seems to be HTTP. Let's find out. Okay, start capture. I'll reload the page. So everyone can get this downloaded. This is called Burp Suite. This is not a Wireshark. That is a demo which is suggested by Edureka. So that's why I'm using Omnipresence, the software. That's a trialware because I'm not recommending it, but it was provided us to test on this session. It is better for us to use Wireshark to trace packets, traffic. I can give you an example of a Burp Suite. A Burp Suite is a wonderful tool, which is an application interceptor from which we can capture individual web traffic. We can manipulate data on the flow. So this is an important tool which is used by white hat testers as well as black hat testers to manipulate the web application traffic. So Burp Suite Community Edition, this is a free edition. The only difference between the original, I mean the full version and the free version is that we cannot save the projects. When we close the session, obviously it goes off. So right now we can work only with the temporary project. I'll write with the temporary project, temporary Burp Suite defaults. So HTTP equal to request and response protocol. So I'll get this one. Let me call it as a server. Let me go for one more smaller one. It's a mobile phone or anything. Smartphone. Okay. So we simply take it as a smartphone, which is user agent. We can call it as a browser, user agent, etc. So user agent, browser, etc. What happens is a server sends a request. This is a HTTP request. And for every request, there will be a response back. And the one cycle, for every request there will be a response, and the request and response are called as a HTTP transaction. So when a client sends a request to get a data or to update something, the server then gives the response back. If the server has the resource, it will give it back to the requester or the user agent. If the data is not available, it says that the data is not available and throws an error of 404. And if the data is not available and it can be redirected, the HTTP code will be an 3. Okay, let me shrink this down and come back. Likewise, in this example, what we see application logic, platform, operating system, and database, application services, etc. are in the host and application logic. So the HTTP codes from range from 1xx, 2xx. Usually we see a code like 200 and state shows the error as 0. Okay. And 300, this code will be used for redirections. 400 series, example 404, not available, etc. And error code, if it's in 500 series, there is an error in the message. Error in processing. These are the 5 different codes. The error code will be always written as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classification. The error message 1 is server received the information, but it has not processed or it's on the way it's processed. And when it sends it throws an error message back, HTTP 2.0, it means server accepted the request. This is the return request. States it's okay, the normal state. This is how the Burp Suite typically looks like. We have initially it will be complex to see multiple options and multiple windows, multiple length. Let's simply go to the live example on how the HTTP traffic would be. So what I'm doing is I'm configuring my browser and I'm using the Burp Suite as my proxy. In option, I search for proxy, network setting proxy. I'll make manually change the proxy to, I think everyone can see the interface ID. It's 127.0.0.1. And the port number I'm using is 8080 as the proxy. So what I did is on the browser, I went to the options tab. I made a simple search proxy. and it took me to the proxy settings. I clicked on the proxy, and I'm manually configuring the proxy here. So 127.0.0.1. So I'm configuring the 127.0.0.1, and I'm setting SSL proxy, FTP proxy, SOCKS, WebSocket. That is also a recent protocol which is implementing like HTTPS. So I'm using the port number 8080. So I made the changes, closing the tab and opening up a new tab. So right now the intercept is off. I'll start. So here let us try visiting a web page where we can go. Regular google.com. Usually the google.com become important name in internet. So anything and everything Google become more dominant, and usually no one will aware about what Google does. Why Google offers multiple free service. What the information Google receives from it. Actually it's data, customers data. For example, if I use a Chrome browser, my history will be also, I will be, most user does not have the tendency to clear the history or use private browsing window. They obviously have an Android phone and they have a Gmail account linked in. So Google has an opportunity to view all the emails, and it has the opportunity to read all your contacts, all your SMS, and all your browser history, all your payments and all your transactions. You might also be noticed when you book a ticket, book a flight ticket, or when you travel a ticket, when you receives an email back from them, automatically the Android phones will notify that your flight is at 10 o'clock, your train is at 12 o'clock. So the data is getting manipulated. Why does Google needs to know about my flight tickets? Why does it need to remind me? It actually gets the data and it collects the statistics of myself. So whatever I do, even Google Fitness is comes across. So it even captures what is my physical activity per day. So I am selling my data for free of cost to Google, and Google makes money from it. So that is why we are getting the free service. Google search engine is not free. We search information from the Google, but for Google advertisements, when you go simply google.com, when I type in google.com, I misspelled something. Do you see that in the background it captured something? It is because the proxy setup. Usually I'll be getting an option to exclude it, but in this browser I'm not getting. Okay, let me try with the regular site. SSL I need to configure something, I believe. ESPN.com, okay. Here I'll be getting the initial traffic. Let me reload. Drop, intercept off. So intercept on. Let me reload. So this is how web application traffic looks like. So what is the method? The get method. In HTTP, most commonly used methods are get and post. Get is to get something from the server, and post is to post or upload something to the server. So initially the first line, it's called get method. We sent a get method to under HTTP 1.1 protocol, and the host is equal to espn.com. The user agent I used here, it's Firefox, and it's supported by native Windows 6.3, Windows 64-bit, etc. And the accepted method, it's text or HTML, XML, XHTML. These are the methods the server will accept. And the accepted language is United States English. So what are the encodings available? What is the type of the connection? When I click on forward, the next information passes through. There was a valid cookie set. This is the cookie ID. So when I forward again, so this is simply I can monitor the traffic whenever, because when I create a hotspot, when I host a hotspot, I can intercept the traffic like this. So whatever goes through, it has to pass through me. And I can sit on a remote location. I can enjoy the browser experience. I can view what are the contents, what are the topics which are viewed by the user. So it's very much easy for me to get information from the place where I was. Let me also remove the proxy for some while. There are multiple business logic attacks happening, presentation logic vulnerability. It's everywhere. Everything is freely available. So there are multiple business logic vulnerabilities. Even OWASP has information on it. Risk factor, likelihood of business logic, look like the presentation logic and the data access logic. What exactly a logic is? Predefined set of rules on the application, which these rules will let the web server know how to process and how to access the resource or how to react to the particular type of request or how to send a response back to the client on particular edge, because logic is simply set of rules instructing your web application to perform in a similar fashion. And on the host, what it has, the platform, a platform may be anything like Apache web server, IIS, etc. The operating system may be anything. Most of the databases are structured query language based databases, and those are most vulnerable. From when we go back into the history, the OWASP is keep on releasing the top 10 web vulnerabilities, and I did always see the SQL injection is almost existed since from the history of web application, and even from the start of implementing a SQL database in any of your web application. The database may be anything: NoSQL, MariaDB, Oracle DB, Microsoft SQL Studio, anything it may be. Anything which uses a structured query language format is vulnerable. Because the only thing we need to identify what is the table and what are the queries and what is its schema. When hacker is very much experienced in database schema and database query language, injecting a script or manipulating this query language is very much easy for him. So with it, he can access and extract any data from a web application. The application services is similar, like frameworks or additional extensions like Java Beans or Java Servlets, Spring Framework, anything and everything it may be. So this is like a basic skeleton of how a web application looks like. What is a attacker's viewpoint on a web application? Web application usually vulnerable, not only the web application, the web application framework they use. What I actually see is getting a fingerprint of the web application and also the web application server. The web server is basically Apache, IIS, or any kind of web server, and the operating system in which the web server is hosted, and also what type of framework or what type of plugin, what type of features enabled in the web server, or what type of technology used on web server, and in which language the web application was written, what is the functionality and what is the purpose of the website. So as a tester, as attacker, I need to think on all the vectors. As a developer, he just need to write some logic, get some designing from the front end developer, and the back end developer need to work on it. Nowadays, even the full stack developers came in, they take care of all the front end as well as the back end task. They just develop an application, they test, they host, and they make it available for the public. But I'm not sure 99% of the developers who does not think about the security of the application. To be precise, it's not like thinking on the security. They might not be 100% aware about the security vulnerabilities, and they might not be trained on how to test the web application security. So we need to think what the attackers think, and what is flooding request, the same DDoS task request, and host security, API service vulnerability. The API service vulnerabilities, there are REST APIs and other APIs. The vulnerability can be found on any place, because as an attacker, I can use the vulnerability of a client browser, or I can manipulate integrated API, or I can make use of any of the existing vulnerability, or I can make leverage the existing application logic to elevate my privilege. Or definitely I try to attack the host machine. If it's a Windows operating system with known vulnerability or a Linux machine with the known vulnerability, I'll definitely hack into it. When I get the operating system access, I can obviously manipulate the servers or any application which are installed. So the attack may be happening on any perspective or any place. I mean, any part of the application. So this is the same thing explains security needs to be at every level. Each and every level, we need to work on the security of particular function. We need to take care of host. We need to take care of the operating system. We need to take care of the platform, the browser, how it interacts with the server, everything and anything we need to take into consideration. What the web application does is we need to verify the code, source code analysis. We need to analyze the source code for any malformed strings or any misinterpreted, I mean, mal-written codes. We need to run a vulnerability scanner on particular website before hosting it or even after hosting it to check for it. If it's in the database, we need to take care of the database security. We need to ensure that the database is properly protected. We can also host a web application firewall here and just before the web browser. It's just between the user and the web server. So the firewall will take care of the malicious or malformed incoming traffic. On the operating system level, we can install the endpoint security, antivirus, anti-malware, or any other suspicious process monitoring processes, HIDS, host intrusion detection system, etc. On the infrastructure level, we can secure the network. Network level, we can configure the ACLs. We can close unnecessary ports. In the server side, when we talk about the servers, when we host an Apache or AES, we just need the minimum required services. We don't need the complete suite. When our website does not have a shopping cart, it is unnecessary to enable the module which deals with shopping cart. Actually, my site is a personal blog. I don't need a shopping cart. The feature should not be installed. That should be disabled or uninstalled, or if should not be installed if it no means. As like the real physical security, the least privilege or separation of duties, the same concepts can be utilized, and only the minimum required and the very basic required functions to be enabled and configured. Usually, a web traffic will obviously use a HTTP traffic uses port 80 and HTTPS traffic uses port 443. So there would be a network firewall. We block all the traffic from all the ports. We allow only the port 80 and port 443. And if in case some of your administrator needs to log in on a particular port to access the remote console or remote web server access, we can configure any port. We can open just a single port that can be excluded and that can be also tightened. We make sure that the particular port can be accessed only from a particular IP address. So others cannot be accessing the particular port. We have 65,535 ports available. In 65,000 ports, it's hard for a attacker to scan the complete list of openly available ports of 65,000. So we can also configure when particular IP address is tried to communicate to us on multiple ports on the same time, we can block it. So logically, we can create rules. Introduction to OWASP. What is OWASP? OWASP is Open Web Application Security Project. That is an open organization that's open source. They contribute to web application security since 2001, almost close to 18, 19 years. The link owasp.org is freely available. You can also log into it. This is how the OWASP page looks like. And these are the flagship projects. You have a tool called OWASP ZAP. ZX Attack Proxy. This is similar to Burp Suite. By default, Burp Suite for personal use it's free of cost. The same way, the OWASP Zap is also free of cost, even it's for commercial or for personal use. It's freely available from owasp.com.org. And also the OWASP developed multiple frameworks. The OWASP web testing environment, this will give you the tools and technology and what are the things that needs to be taken care for a it simplifies the job of a web application pen tester. Dependency check, OAuth Shepherd, Juice Shop, these are the things you can freely roam into this site. You can often, we also will be talking about the security assurance maturity model. This is for the software development lifecycle and how securely we have to build an application. These are the things we tonight. So when we go here, when we download, there will be a file. So I'm downloading the zip file. Usually the OWASP SAM, the project will look like, it's like a questionnaire. How do we audit? So this is the place where we need to go for the download. So once it's downloaded, we can go to the place and we can extract all. These are Excel sheets. Okay, let me try opening up with the browser. I'm able to open it with the browser. So this typically talks about what actually security assurance maturity model is and who are the contributors and what is the purpose of it. Generally, this deals with all the aspects, software developments, the governance. Under the governance deals with the what are the metrics and what are the strategies and what are the security principles to be included in it. What are the policies and complaints to be in place when developing an application and what are the guidelines it needs to be provided. Also in construction, while constructing the application, what are the things to be taken care? How do we make the threat assessment, and what are the minimum security requirements, and what would be the best and recommend requirements of it, and how do we securely architect application, the verification and operation, etc. These documents are simply gives you enhanced knowledge or enhanced guidelines. It is a framework for us to read and understand. This is for the software developers who develop software. They need to go through the booklet and they can make use of the framework to help them develop and provide a much secure application. So everything will be available on this zip file. Whenever you're free to go, you can unzip the files and you can view it. And it is not a complex thing. It is just a point by point basis. I can show you example on it. OWASP image. Similarly, it will just look like a questionnaire pattern. It will give you the set of questionnaires where you need to enter yes, no, or not applicable, similarly to the ISO audit or any auditing factor. So, based on the applicability and non availability or availability of the source, resource, or following the procedure or not, the scoring will be done. And based on the scoring, your application will be provided with the security score, whether it's secure or it needs to be go on a revision or needs to be worked on separate areas or particular areas where the security has to be implemented or reworked. Example, like this image will be having the yes no question pattern. It will give you the questions and we need to type in yes no, or we need to select the options to complete the question now and to move on to the next. So everyone can make use of the OWASP Zap. That is obviously free for you to test and work on it. In OWASP, we have a testing guide, OWASP testing guide, which gives you step-by-step introduction or step-by-step procedure on how to learn application security testing. It will also give you the basics of testing methodologies and common mistakes what a developer does, and how often the exploits are used, and what is the severity of the vulnerability used. So the OWASP top 10 is also more common. They periodically, OWASP will be reviewing the commonly exploited vulnerabilities based on the statistics and also based on the community inputs. So 2010 we got an OWASP top 10, 2013 we got an OWASP top 10, and 2017 we got an OWASP top 10. On 2010, what we see is injection, SQL injection was existed. At the time, A2, that was cross-site scripting that was there. A3, broken authentication and session management. Insecure direct object reference. CSFR, cross-site request forgery. Security misconfiguration. Insecure cryptographic storage. Failure to restricted URL access. Insufficient transport layer. Unvalidated redirects and forwards. These were the top 10 vulnerabilities at the time of 2010 when this was released. Later on, again by 2013, it was released. Once again, re released with the changes. Let us compare. What was the difference? Okay, let us compare here from 2010. So when we see these three, the A1, the topmost attack on any website, that is still as injection. Injection is nothing but a SQL injection. So the level and severity is also retained same. There is no difference in SQL injection. Any application which were developed from long ago to till now and even in future, which uses a SQL database or structured query, incorporate structured query language in them, is obviously highly vulnerable and highly exposed to user data. And likewise, from 2010, topmost second vulnerability is cross-site scripting, but in 2013 it was in level 3, and now in 2017 it become seventh level. It was somewhat adjusted, it's somewhat manipulated. Developers were somewhere adapted and they were able to produce bit complex good secure application so that the cross-site scripting were not able to get in. And the cross-site request forgery is still available. On 2017, the cross-site request forgery is not available, but the newly added XML external entities, these were a new vulnerability identified, and this was added here. The broken authentication, security misconfiguration, these are keeps on repeating. OWASP just informs you about what is OWASP and what are the technologies involved in here. Okay, vulnerability scoring method. How a vulnerability is getting scored. So this is the pattern how it looks like. So when we talk on every vulnerability from now on, we can come to know how it was scored and what was the complete score of the particular vulnerability. The four different categories are threat agents, attack vector, security weakness, and impact. These are the four attributes which takes in care, and attributes are furthermore subdivided as under impact, the technically how impactful and how impacted to the business, security weakness, and whether it is continuously prevailing or is it easily detectable by the existing attacker, or even it's a detected attack or still not fixed. So likewise, it's a furthermore split it across an attack vector, whether this vulnerability is exploitable. Not all the vulnerabilities can be exploited. So when we are not able to take advantage of this vulnerability, it means that it's not exploitable. So the scoring will be low. Thank you.